Good evening, YouTube. This is Eddie. This is going to be a comparative video of the Glock 26 versus the PF9. Glock by Glock, PF9 by Keltec, both American companies. I mentioned in a previous video, in my EDC video, that I wanted to make another video outlining the difference on these two pistols and why I chose to switch from my PF9 to my Glock 26 as my primary concealed carry weapon. So, I've got everything laid out here. This is the PF9 with a little bit of modification I've done. This is the Glock 26 with the modifications I've done. One thing, obviously, and this is not going to be very technical, you know, I'm not going to show different levels of accuracy and everything between the two guns. They're both very accurate. Just the surface stuff, the stuff that's easy to go over, and some people might be considering and weighing the options between carrying a Glock 26 versus a PF9, and then there's others in the arena, but these are probably the best ones. First of all, I've got our ammo count here. So this is the Glock 26, this is the PF9. I have been carrying the PF9 for a long time, and I've had both weapons, and I recently switched to carrying the Glock 26 as my primary for various reasons, which I'll go into, but first a few comparisons. Here we've got the loadout of the PF9. It is a single stack magazine, and it holds 7 plus 1. So here's what I have loaded in a PF9 at any given point in time when it's in my pocket. This is 8 rounds, 7 plus 1. Here's the same with the Glock 26, 10 rounds plus 1 for a total of 11. The Glock is slightly larger, and its magazine is actually a double stack. Here's the two magazines next to each other, about the same length, both high quality magazines, both feed very well, and the difference in the slimness there. That's a big difference between the Glock 26 and the PF9 is the thickness. That's why everybody loves those PF9s. They're very thin, very easy to forget that you have it in your pocket. A Glock, you're much more likely to notice actually carrying it around. You could see that in these two different pocket holsters that I use. This is the pocket holster I was carrying around, and this might be backwards because I inverted the camera left to right so that I could better coordinate with myself here. But this is a Blackhawk in the pocket holster, which if you have a PF9, this Blackhawk holster, which I got on Amazon for fairly cheap, does work very well. You know, it's kind of a fake leather, nice and soft. It's got this stuff to kind of stick in your pocket, and I never really had any trouble with it coming out of my pocket when I was drawing. This is a Superfly. You can see there's a pretty big difference in size and how these fit in your pockets. However, I've got to say, I've been wearing like nylon cargo shorts and stuff with this, and this fits just fine. Depending on the pocket size, this can print. You know, like when I'm wearing my BDU shorts, it doesn't really show up as anything. It's just kind of a square block in there amidst all the other pockets. But like in my thin nylon shorts that I'm wearing, if you look at it without my shirt covering it, you can definitely tell it's a lot easier to tell that it's a gun. I'm not too concerned with printing, but if somebody was concerned with printing, the Glock is a little tougher to carry as a pocket carry. You're kind of always aware that it's there. But there's the difference in size there, pretty substantial. This is an awesome holster, by the way. Never have any trouble with it coming out. Pretty easy to put in there. When I stick it in my pocket, I kind of start putting it through the pocket and then kind of hook it in to let it sit in there. So, I also carrying this Glock magazine and a, I think it's Blackhawk, this double stack magazine carrier, which fits the magazine perfect. Sticks in there really good. It's held in there by tension. I gotta say though, this does ride up a little high on my belt, so it does kind of jab me in the flesh with these parts right here sometimes. But it is better having it on my belt than keeping it in my pocket and having an extra pocket that's heavy with something like a magazine. So on to the guns. Here's the difference in size. It's a substantial difference. to go over a few figures here. The Glock 26 is quite a bit bigger. The overall length of the Glock 26 is 6.54 inches. The length of the PF9 is 5.87 inches. It's considerably smaller. The barrel length on the inside, the Glock has kind of a much pretty longer barrel for these tiny little guns like this. It's 3.43 inches, where the Keltec is 3.11. However, despite those barrel lengths, they are both extremely accurate. I find that the sights on the Keltec are kind of the sights where you have to overlay the front dot over what you're shooting, and the sights on the Glock are more of the apple on the post type. The unloaded weight is a pretty big difference too. The Keltec unloaded is 0.79 pounds, while the Glock unloaded is 1.23. So there's a pretty substantial difference in size and weight between these if you're considering them together. Lots of other little ones like the LC9 by Ruger and all the others, they're more kind of into this category, and the Glock 26 is just a little bit on the too big for pocket carry size. That said, if you're willing to carry something this big and to pocket carry it, or to carry it on a holster or whatever, but I'm mostly pocket carrying this and looking into appendix carry and stuff. This is, in my opinion, a much higher quality gun. This is a fighting gun. You know, this is a gun where I've seen people say that they can use this. It's a high enough quality and it's reliable enough and accurate enough and everything that this can be their primary weapon, even though it's a subcompact pistol. This, not so much. This is why I actually started thinking about switching from the PF9 to the Glock 26. Because the PF9, as much as I love Keltec and they're made in the USA and they have a lifetime warranty and yada yada yada, all that buzz about their customer service, I was starting to find some quality issues. I thought that this would be the perfect gun because of all my research and everything on it, but I was finding, and I maybe put, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 rounds through it, somewhere in there. It's starting to have some issues where when I'm firing it, long trigger pull by the way, it's actually got a very nice trigger pull, but when I am firing it and a magazine empties, sometimes it's not locking all the way back. Now I've heard that some issues with the magazines and everything, but I've cleaned out the magazines, made sure the followers and everything were working properly, nothing was hung up, and it's still doing it. So I don't know what that's all about. And a larger concern is that I'm starting to get some light primer hits. Sometimes it'll shoot and the round won't go off, and I'll look at the round and there's an indentation on the primer, but the primer hasn't fired, so it's not hitting hard enough. So that's a little bit concerning. Those two things together start to add up to some reliability issues when you consider this for concealed carry. When I was researching that, I found a lot of people talk about, you know, sending it back to the factory, and I tried calling Keltec to start the process of sending this back for them to work on it, and I was going to have to be on hold for 27 minutes, and I know that it would be gone for weeks if I sent it off, so that's why I started focusing on the 26. But when I look on the inside of this, after researching what people have found, I noticed that the inside of the slide is a lot softer than this. You know, it's got a lot of burrs, it's got a lot of little nicks and stuff like that, and that's probably having to do with the reliability issues. This thing, however, frickin' solid. This is a solid piece of steel. It's amazing. The difference between shooting these two is quite astounding. You can just feel everything about it is so much more solid, so much more reliable. I've upgraded this. I upgraded the slide release, which is something that's a little easier to work with. The original Glock one is kind of a lot like this Keltec one, to where it's just kind of this flat thing, which the Keltec one is not as hard to manipulate because it kind of sticks out a little bit more than the Glock factory one did. But a factory Glock one, you know, is really tight up against the side there, and it's kind of hard to push with your thumb, and you might be able to do that a few times, but when you're training and stuff, it starts to like make a blister on your thumb and it's harder to operate. So this was a very valuable upgrade right there. I also upgraded that spring rod right here. That's a stainless steel one I got from Amazon for about 40 bucks. It's also got tritium night sights, which I love, and as well as the Punisher anodized aluminum backplate, which I replaced all that stuff. One thing I did not replace was the extended magazine switch right here, because it really does stick out quite a bit and I didn't want it to get in the way. I was finding, when I made my last video, I showed you my extra Glock magazine that I had was the extended kind that had an extra little lip and another couple of rounds in there. I've since been kind of avoiding carrying that because at the range I find that when I'm shooting, first of all, shooting it like this doesn't bother me. Having my pinky out of the way right there and just controlling it with these 3 fingers works just fine. But when I did have that one and I had to have my pinky like a normal size firearm right there, I was finding as I was firing, the magazine had a little bit of a jiggle right there. And that kind of made me a little uncomfortable about the wiggliness of the extended magazine right there while I was firing, if it might cause some sort of feeding issues. So I'm totally fine with carrying these 10-round magazines and just not having anywhere for my pinky to go right there. It works just fine for me. But I guess some people have a hard time with it. I don't understand that. So those are those two. One thing I would recommend from what I've researched with the Glock 26 is I thought about putting an aftermarket barrel, like a stainless steel barrel or something, but some people have said that the, well, it's not said, it's a fact, that the tolerances and everything on those aftermarket barrels are a lot tighter, which means that the gun is more prone to malfunctioning. Like if you have some issues with your ammo or something, if it's all tighter clearances in there, you might have some jams where if you were having the wider open factory barrel, it otherwise may not be inclined to do so. Something I've also considered doing with this is to replace this Glock 26 barrel with a factory Glock 19 barrel, which gives it a little extra barrel length there, which will add about 40 to 50 FPS to the velocity. But from what I've been able to tell, this is really super accurate as it is, and having that little extra bit of barrel length probably doesn't make very much difference. So I haven't really bothered with it. Incidentally, I was going to, and I mentioned this in the last video, I had some engraving that I was planning to do. I had a guy who works in my building who does laser engraving, but then when we tested it, when I'm making a video, I forget how to open my slide. We tested it by putting a couple of little O's on the inside of the slide there with the laser, and you could barely see it there, but it doesn't really show up. Not like this. So, I don't know what kind of finish that has on it. That's like freaking bulletproof, but it doesn't take the laser, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. Maybe there's something else I could do for that. But so there you have it. Hopefully my slurry little stream of consciousness there did go over some accurate information. I wanted to basically point out why I made the switch from the PF9 to the Glock 26 for concealed carry. It's a major difference in reliability and also just overall quality of the weapon. And you know, the price reflects it, of course. Glocks are more expensive than PF9s. You can get these for $300, and these are more like, I don't know, this is about $700 worth of gun with the night sights and everything. But it does make me feel a lot better about if I need it. And it does have the extra weight, but that is manageable. Especially once I start looking into other holster options and stuff, although I've been pretty happy with pocket carry with this. So, alright, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And subscribe if you are following all this random stuff that I do. Alright, good night.